with this. Hey everyone, welcome to You'll Probably Agree. And today we're talking about a movie that I liked when I saw it, and then when I found out what everybody else thought of the movie, I thought there was something wrong with me. I don't know. It was 2003. I was still in high school, but that movie is Ang Lee's Hulk, a Hulk movie that I think. Uh, okay, good. It's still going. I thought I wasn't live for a second.
Oh, you're still live.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a Hulk film where uh, I think because Ang Lee took the chances that he did, and he was so much of an auteur with it, and they let him do his own thing, and then the movie lost a ton of money, which I think I have the numbers here.
I think the movie was profitable.
Yeah, it made okay. So here we go. So opening weekend, it made like $62 million, and then in the first 3 days of its opening weekend, and then in the second week, the numbers plummeted to 18 million. And that's I don't know if that was profitable for them.
Yeah,
but
worldwide it did well. I read up on it.
Yeah, worldwide it had a bigger numbers. I mean, that's kind of what happens with the Transformers franchise too. Like the American numbers are all right, but like in China, they get a ton of numbers for those movies. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about Ang Lee's Hulk, and yeah, it's a movie just like AI, artificial intelligence. I've always liked and didn't get why the audiences didn't like it as much. And then this movie is the same case where I always enjoyed it. And then years later, like 10, 20 years after the movie comes out, you have people coming forward and saying how much they like the film and how it was different from other MCU films. And then I'm just kind of sitting on my quarterback armchair going, oh, now you agree with me, huh? But yeah, I'd like to go around the room. I like to introduce Mark, the movie man from Special Mark Productions, and Sajiwa Ekanayake, New York City indie filmmaker. And is that also your YouTube channel? Because I think I was pulling it up there. But what's your YouTube channel's name?
Yeah, I think so. I think it might be NYC indie filmmaker Sajiwa. Apparently, the only indie filmmaker in New York.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. This New York City indie filmmaker Sajiwa. Yeah, I just pulled it up there. But yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna go around the room and ask everyone what they thought of the film. But before we do that, Sajiwa, would you like to sort of synopsize what the movie is?
Sure. It's like Greek gods story, origin story for the Hulk, Marvel comic book character. So we start the movie with Hulk's, David Banner, Bruce Banner's father, being a scientist who's experimenting with ways to make regeneration possible, possibly for soldiers. And he does a test on himself. And some of those qualities, inherited qualities, get passed down to our hero who becomes the Hulk eventually, Bruce Banner. Then we cut to many years later. Bruce Banner is a scientist experimenting on some of the similar stuff as his dad did. There's an accident. He becomes the Hulk, and then the government is after him, and we go on from there.
Right. Yeah. So, what did you guys think of the movie? I'll start with Mark, then we can go to Jua, then we can go to me.
Oh, sure. Start with me. I rewatched it. I don't think I've watched it for many years. When it first came out, I was not impressed. I was for parts of it. I enjoy the kinetic energy. It has a Darkman vibe to it that I didn't catch the first time watching it, but watching it again, it has the feel of Darkman, of what Sam Raimi was doing with that, and that came out almost 10 years before this one, I think, if I remember correctly, with it. But So it has that vibe. Watching it again, I have a bit more appreciation with it. But I still, there's something about it that just doesn't. Oh, it's 15 years. It just doesn't sit right with me and watching it, and I'm not quite sure what it is. I don't know if it's the breakneck speed it tries to blow through so much,
especially with all those comic book transitions.
Well, I don't mind the comic book transition. I'm just talking about the story wise, how it covers it covers a lot of ground, but it doesn't go into a lot of heavy, it doesn't go into much explanation until you get Nick Nolte's exposition dump when he meets up with Jennifer Connelly's character. Up until that point, it's moving to where like, okay, all right, I'm keeping track, but it's like it just presents an idea and keeps moving. And part of it is cool, but part of it, what it's presenting is interesting. It just doesn't stay on it too long, and things happen immediately. Now, knowing Ang Lee and also knowing his background and having watched a lot of cinema from over the Pacific, it fits.
Yeah.
The style of storytelling is definitely fits, because if you watch anime will blow through plot lines like nothing.
I'm thinking about Akira when you mentioned that, or Ghost in the Shell. Like Akira goes really fast. It goes from like these guys on motorcycles to the end of the universe, or something like that.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think for me,
that movie's batshit crazy. I love it.
No, I love Akira. I love Akira in that. I think for this film, for this story, for the way they're telling it, for me, it's just me personally, not my flavor of story. I enjoy bits and pieces of it quite a bit. And again, watching it now after so many years, I don't think I watched it till it came out on video. And before that, the theater. I have more appreciation what they were doing, especially now with what we get for comic book films. So doing something different and them still in that feeling out phase that we've talked about before with other comic book films, late 90s into the early aughts, they're trying to figure this out, how they're going to do this. And for me, I guess that's where it sits for me. I did not like it when it first came out. Watching it again, it's still middle of the road for me. But I see a lot more things that I didn't when I was a lot younger. So, because it came out when I was 29. So, what the hell do I know at that point? But yeah, so that's where I'm at with it. I'm more middle of the road now, but I still don't think it's a great film. I think it stumbles quite a bit to where it could have been a lot smoother, but that, part of that's personal choice. So
yeah. And I actually totally hear you there, because although I like the movie and I thought it was underappreciated, like it is far from perfect. I think a lot of those transitions that they use is kind of gimmicky at a certain point, like especially that part where Josh Lucas like walks up to the Hulk while he's surrounded in foam, shoots the explosive at him, bounces back, explodes behind Josh Lucas. He's in the air. They freeze frame and then they zoom out. And there's like 20 illustrations, and then it zooms into one. I'm like, this is fucking nuts, but I'm for it when I'm watching this. But then when it comes to the pacing, like there's just a long sequence where it's just the Hulk running around in the desert while the military's trying to stop him in whichever way they can, which can be pretty dull. And then Nick Nolte, although he's good for the role, he was a little too perfect for the role. Because it's just him being him.
It's just Nick Nolte being Nick Nolte.
I got the DUI during the making of the movie. That's why his hair was dust, because he grew it for the role. But it was just Nick Nolte, especially like the scene where he bites the wire and then electrocutes himself. It's just like I could just see Nick Nolte doing something like that, like on one of his benders.
The desert segments are slow cinema Hulk. I like them a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be. I don't think they intentionally made it to be slow, though. I think they Ang Lee was thinking, "Oh, this is like exciting action," but there's like no stakes in there because like they're just toys for the Hulk to play with. And when it's missing stakes, you're just kind of waiting for the plot to progress again. which it does once they get to San Francisco and he lands in the water, and then they have the big climax between the father and the son. But I totally hear why you weren't totally into it. Obviously, most audiences weren't either. And I think this movie's getting more appreciation now. Because I think people kind of like how it's not just as typical MCU stuff, but also because it's nostalgic. It's like, oh, I remember when I was a kid back then and this movie came out and everyone thought it was weird. I used to think it was weird, but I like it now. It's kind of like with the prequels where we all of a sudden all love Revenge of the Sith. I like Revenge of the Sith.
No, we don't. Well, some people do. No.
Yeah, but everyone's like, it's been 20 years, everyone's kind of drank the Kool-Aid. And I think after seeing how terrible The Rise of Skywalker was, it made Attack of the Clones look like fucking Citizen Kane. So, yeah. So, Sujiwa, what are your thoughts on the movie?
Yesterday, before the rewatch today, yesterday I was working off of memories and I watched some clips online. So I had some notes. And today, after the rewatch, I think it's very good. Yesterday, I was thinking it was just okay. So my notes we'll have two takes. Some quick notes from yesterday. Has a weird, good comic book look. Needs better production design, color grade effects. If being re-released, would not be difficult to do with film grade, etc. Jennifer Connelly can make a man shrink.
I would think you'd make him grow, but never.
Well, both.
The science
yeah.
Alternate promo line for the movie. In this movie, you will see Jennifer Connelly make a giant man shrink. You will believe it.
She will cool down his heart.
Yeah, drama and trauma, good drama. I think it could use some comic. Yesterday, I was thinking it could use some comic relief, like two characters who are maybe accidental soldiers, and they're like assigned to cover Hulk. Every time there's something going on, they could be like, "What is going on? What is this monster?"
They just see Hulk in front of them, and they just hightail out of there. Yeah.
That what I was thinking yesterday was that the movie could use some comic relief.
Yeah, it's super serious. Like, it's funny. Eric Bana said like the mood on the set was like ridiculously morbid. Yeah, and like the scene that he does with General Thunderbolt Ross, they did 150 takes of.
So, Nick Nolte's acting work and the character's weird superhero, evil hero type is cool. Most actors do a great job. The Atheon guy may be a reference to Raytheon, which is an actual weapons manufacturer. And they also need to give the Jennifer Connelly character more to do instead of just reacting to the men, and maybe have her character come up with some integral part of the solution. But she is very special. I mean, very important to the solution, to the Hulk story in the Greek tragedy drama kind of sense. But I'll get to that in the next assessment. Overall, better than most Marvel movies. This is from yesterday, and this is very much an Ang Lee art house Marvel movie. That's why the segments where they're just showing Hulk running through the desert, that's like slow cinema, international art house cinema, and that's something that Ang Lee does in a bunch of his movies. Also, this is like if Jarmusch made a Hulk movie, it would be similar to this. So that was my take. That was my take from yesterday. So today, after rewatching it, I watched it on Amazon. They have a really good copy. Hulk 23, 2003. Ang Lee, Eric Bana is a great superhero origin movie. Amazon has a high quality version of the movie. It moves fast. Cinematography, acting, excellent. No changes needed for the re-release. I think it could go as is. The version that's on Amazon, I think it'll work. And there's a Mickey Mouse image in one.
You sent me that. Yeah, they have Mickey Mouse's ears, is foreshadowing what's going to happen to the studio.
That's right, and it's a Greek god's tragedy / drama, and also, as you said, Hulk is partially Asian in the movie because Ang Lee did the part or all of the motion capture acting for Hulk. So so the movie is basically about. So I think it's great. I think as a Marvel origin movie, It's great. Re-release it back to the theaters.
Yeah.
It's basically it's kind of like a Greek tragedy or drama. Child abuse creates a monster, and Jennifer Connelly's character looks a lot like Bruce Banner's mom. So
yeah.
what helps to take away some of the monster qualities is the love of a good woman, as you know, or the ex-love or whatever of a good woman. So that's the underlying story, and then that's an epic sort of classic storytelling devices in there. Then we build on, and so looks like Ang Lee tried his best to create the experience of reading a comic, but in a motion picture form.
Yeah, very well said. I've always liked this movie because I remember when I saw the Edward Norton Hulk reboot, which actually I think is the first MCU film, because in the mid-credit sequence, Tony Stark approaches. I think it was William Hurt, right?
Yeah,
that was
that's the first one. Yeah, that's considered like ground zero. Was that cutscene? So the Incredible Hulk is technically part of the MCU.
Yeah, and of course, Edward didn't stick around for the production because he's Edward Norton, and he probably, well, he said, I remember at the time him and the director said there were more character development scenes, which I kind of find hard to believe, because this movie came from like strictly like an action director, and B, it's like if it did have more character development scenes, it would just feel kind of just plain and not fillery, but just something we've seen before. It's not going to have that unique stamp that Ang Lee's film had. And the great thing about
I don't think they ever did an origin story after the Ang Lee movie, right?
No, it just like cut to like Bruce Banner being like somewhere around the world. I can't remember where, because I haven't seen that movie in forever.
They almost played Incredible Hulk like a pseudo sequel to this one.
Yeah.
The way they wrote it, and I give them props for it. The way they wrote it, you could either include Ang Lee's Hulk or not as the origin story, because you pick up with Ed Norton with his Banner years later where he's trying to find the cure yet, because we discover he doesn't have the cure. And the way this one ends, spoiler, it's still right. So the way they did it almost like a different storyline for the same character, like you do for comics. So you could tie together them loose enough, because they left enough open at the end of this one, and they write it loosely at the beginning of the other, where you could go, I could see this as the origin story, but otherwise, no, you don't get another origin.
Yeah, I think after, like, because they wanted to do the exact opposite of what Ang Lee's film did. They don't want it to be emotionally heavy. They want it to be fun and light. And they don't want to do an origin story, because I think people don't want another origin story after the 2003 film. It's kind of what they're doing with Superman now. I don't think they're going to have an origin story with the James Gunn one. It's just kind of, it's already there. It's in your face. He's got the super dog with them, or I can't remember, Crypto. Yeah, Crypto with them. Yeah.
Hulk is not a fun and light character. So I think the Ang Lee movie is perfect for him.
Yeah, because what I really like about the Ang Lee movie, and I was watching some of the extras that are on YouTube, and makes me yearn for my DVD, my precious, is Ang Lee, as you said, Sujiwo, he was making a Greek tragedy, and he was making a movie about what makes the Hulk tick. It's not just, someone punches him in the face and he's mad. It's he has all these repressed memories from his past.
Child abuse is what.
Like literally, like this is how intense the film gets. I grabbed a clip of it. This is a scene where his father tries killing him and then kills a mother. Oh, I'm sorry, are we spoiling it? Well, I should put up a banner for a movie about banners.
From 22 years ago.
Yeah, but this is how intense the movie gets.
It was as if she and the knife merged.
Yeah, and then from there she dies in front of a nuclear explosion. So I think when people saw that, they're like, this isn't comic booky. This is depressing. He almost stabbed the child to death. And for me, I'm like, I love that because that's showing you how this guy is so fucked up. Because like I love the way Eric Bana plays the Hulk or Bruce Banner in this movie because he looks like he's holding something in. You know, he kind of has this little raspy voice. You know, that sort of matches Nick Nolte's as his father, and you could tell this guy he's going through something, but we don't know what. And then becoming the Hulk unleashes that. So then, like, I think maybe 40, 50 minutes in when Jennifer Connelly, Betty meets David, Nick Nolte, and they give that backstory, I think by then either the audiences were completely checked out because they thought it was way too serious, or some of them were drawn in because it's no longer just like this simple story about a guy who gets mad and turns into this big green Hulk and smashes things. It's about a guy who's traumatized by his past and probably never can get over it because even during like that big ending fight in the dark with his dad where it turns into this huge bubble and they take him out with a missile, it doesn't give you like a clean sort of understanding between the two. There's not like a moment where Bruce says to David, I don't care if you're my father, you did this to my mother, I want nothing to do with you, goodbye. Or somehow they make peace, which I don't know how they would make peace. No, it leaves it unresolved, just like how life has unanswered questions. And that's what I liked about it. It was very nuanced for a comic book movie. And even with its flaws, and it has big ones that I stated before, it's unlike any other Marvel film we will ever see again. I mean, this was the movie that made Marvel go, "Uh-oh, we gotta get Kevin Feige on board and do the thing we're gonna do." So I respect it for that, and I miss movies that take chances like that.
This could be a comic book movie that is nominated for an Oscar because it's a blend of the serious stuff that Oscars like to go for with a comic book story. I mean, I don't think it was it nominated?
There it is.
Was it nominated for anything?
No, I don't think so. Not visual effects. I remember at the time, everyone joked about how bad the Hulk looked. Like I remember watching Conan O'Brien, and he said that the Hulk looked like a piece of crap, and everyone was just kind of like, "Yeah." Well, the thing is, it's like on and off. There's like moments where I'm like, "That looks kind of believable," but then there are other moments like, "Okay, here's one. Here's one right here that you can clearly tell that they are." Like whoever's using After Effects or whatever program they're using, that they took the pen tool and put it around Eric Bana's head because it looks like it's floating above him. Yeah, that looks absolutely ridiculous. And then there are some times, as Sujiwa, you told me in the comments when we were talking earlier, where the Hulk looks a little too bright green. And they needed to darken it so then it wouldn't look as cartoony. And I think in some sequences the lighting is like that. And there is some and the scene between the dogs when he's fighting the mutated poodle, that looked terrible because A, I couldn't see a thing, and B, like that shot where they shoved the poodle's head like through Betty's windshield, it looked like something from Looney Tunes. It was terrible.
Yeah, well,
But
one thing about this movie, just to drop in for a minute.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
When you're watching an art house movie, once you have to sort of accept the entire style, right? Because it's not the normal pace, the normal way of doing it. So if you take everything Ang Lee did in this movie as one thing and accept it as his vision, then the movie works. Especially the higher quality, higher resolution versions, like the one I saw on Amazon earlier today, the visuals are very good. When you look at the low res YouTube clips, Hulk doesn't look as good. But in the higher qualities and at the theater, I mean, it must have looked good in the theater because I don't recall being too upset about the image. That was a long time ago, also. But yeah, if you accept that this is Ang Lee's Hulk, then everything works. But if you want to make it like a modern, realistic movie, we do have the tech now Hulk is basically a giant dinosaur, right? We can make them. We have realistic ways of doing dinosaurs now, and
Yeah.
especially if you mix shadows and color grading and the environment. Yeah, if Ang Lee were to, or someone else were to remake this origin story, it would look a million times better now. But this is the style. This is the thing. The entire package from Ang Lee, and if you accept it that way, it works.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, I remember when I saw it at the time, I remember everyone said it looked so fake, and at the time, I'm like, "Oh, it didn't look fake to me. What are they talking about?" And when I saw it recently, it was like a mixed bag. Sometimes I thought, "Wow, that looks really impressive." Like when he's holding on to the jet and he's like hitting his head against the windshield, and a little bit of gray is starting to develop on his face as sort of like a homage to what the original Hulk was. The Hulk was originally supposed to be gray, but then when they printed out the first like draft or photos or whatever you want, whatever the term is for the comic book of him, he was green by mistake. But it worked so well. Stan Lee, uh, uh, decided to just stick with that as his color. But I kind of like how they were nodding to the camera in a subtle way with that. And yeah, he looked like he was really on that jet.
Mhm.
That part looked incredible. I think when he was fighting with, I think it's called like the altering man, the changing man, whatever. They never say out loud what Nick Nolte's like alter ego is, but like when he's starting to grow with that lightning, that
Absorbing
looked pretty
man.
cool. I'm sorry,
I think he's called the absorbing man, or he calls
absorbing
himself
man.
the
Yeah,
absorbing.
yeah, like that fight, not the fight looked good, but right before that it looked pretty good. But yeah, mostly the desert scenes look pretty good. It's mostly like when he's like in a medium lit setting, it looks fake. Like when he first turns into the Hulk, when Josh Lucas is trying to beat him up because he thinks that Bruce like kicked him off some sort of project. Like that looked pretty fake. Like when he's flexing and then like the shirt breaks and then he like looks right at the camera. It looks like a cartoon dinosaur.
Uh,
Um,
Ang Lee's Hulk reminds me a little of Nolan's Batman, where
mm,
they
oh yeah,
tried to. Well, he made a, he took a comic book character and made a really dark, serious movie that's almost set in the real world, right? They're, I mean, they did it here visually, not as successful, but the tone underneath is kind of similar, I think. And later in the other Marvel movies, they were controlled by the corporation, even though they hired directors. The directors were not given the power to imprint their vision the way that Ang Lee did with his Hulk.
yeah. Well, why do you guys think? I mean, I kind of gave my 2 cents, but why do you guys think the film was sort of critically panned and audiences didn't like it?
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I guess. Oh, sure. Touch it. Well, first off, I just wanted to feature the 2-disc special edition set that
so you
I've got.
it. Is that a DVD or Blu-ray?
Well, no, this is a 2-disc DVD set.
That's the one I owned, I think, at the
It
time.
has the movie. It's got deleted scenes. It's got the creation of the dogfight scene. It's got an interactive exploration of the physical capability. This was back when they actually put effort into their physical releases. And folks know I'm a huge physical consumer, and I will always go back to the DVD copies for a lot of stuff, because to this day they have the better special features, like this one where you get to see the motion capture suit that they used the Hulk at ILM. And also they've got in here a DVD that'll let you play the entire level of the Hulk game for the Xbox. You put the DVD in and it'll do that. Plus it's got the commentary from Ang Lee, and it's got renowned artists from around the world recreate a scene from the film with their own animation style. This is a very cool release.
Amazing.
I enjoy this release more than the movie, actually.
That's I love the DVDs back then, because like the menus would like move and interact, and now it's just like a flat screen where you play the movie.
The early aughts are an odd area for your comic book films, and late 90s, as we've explored, because once Burton showed, hey, look, we can do a superhero film other than Superman, and you can bring a darker element and have it be popular, everybody hopped on the bandwagon. And we got not a year after Batman 89, we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which while it did break away from the source material, that was actually a very good comic book film as well. So, and then you got Blade in there as well. So you had this kind of early rolling popularity of comic book films, but then you also within there had Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher, and you had Corman's defunct Fantastic Four, and you had a number of TV movies which were very rough. So I mean, it was a mixed bag for comic book films, and I think this one was, I think it was a little too different too soon for audiences compared to what you got for your other comic book films. I think that's what it is. And it doesn't, it makes sense that this film did better overseas, because if you look at the way it is, a lot of times films like this don't do well in, as they would say, West or the US the domestic box office. But overseas, a film like this does very well because folks are used to this style of film, this style of storytelling, as we mentioned, and so I think, and they're more open. European and Asian cinema and just those not in the US for your mass audience are more open to different styles because they get more variation, because you don't have one Hollywood corporate body basically cranking out similar stuff. They have these studios and they're all doing their own thing. So I think for the domestic box office and for audiences, I think it was too odd and too different for him. It's the same thing for Darkman. I mentioned it. This has the same energy as Darkman. If you watch
fucking elephants.
Yeah, but if you watch how it's executed, how the story's told, it has the same energy. And that's what I do appreciate about the rewatch with Hulk that I didn't notice the first time, is this very much felt like it could be a companion to Darkman. You watch these back to back, they have the same energy, hit the same beats in a lot of ways as well, with the love interest and even the villain and everything. They hit similar beats and similar energy, but they are, I think, just a hair too out there for your mass audience. If you're looking to appeal to the mass audience, especially when you're in rocky ground with your comic book genre before it gets its feet, I think those elements all together, because in the genre, a lot of the genre awards shows and that, well, not a lot of them, but some of them acknowledged this film and enjoyed this film. A lot of folks who were heavy into the sci-fi, it got awards for technical as well as some of the genre award shows that are specifically to sci-fi, specifically to horror. They appreciated this film a lot, but your normal mainstream audience, it's just too out there yet. I think I would say if this came out now, or if it came out during, say, the phase, the early phases of Marvel, of the MCU, I think it would be a little bit more accepted.
Yeah.
I honestly do. I just think it was bad timing for the style and the type of story it is.
Yeah, and the way they advertised it too, like it looked like a fun action film. Although the teaser to the movie is just beautiful.
Oh yeah,
where it's just Eric Bana staring himself in the mirror, and then like the Hulk bursts through the house. And I think that was one of those trailers where they would film a part of the movie, but it wasn't for the movie; it would be for the trailer.
Yep.
Yeah,
that part is in the movie.
Yeah,
that part is there.
Well, a bit of it is, because in the beginning you have Eric Bana. Did I say Eric Bana? Oh, I said that right. Okay.
Yeah,
I was getting Eric Bana confused with Bruce Banner, and I thought I merged them together for a second. But we have Bruce Banner looking into the mirror, and then the Hulk's wiping the other part of it, and he's actually behind the mirror. He's looking at his true self. Hulk punches through it. He yells, "Puny human," as he's holding Bruce Banner in his hands and yanking that away. Like, that was in the movie. What wasn't in the movie was, I think they show like the house from the outside get like blown apart by the Hulk running through it. But yeah, like parts of it was, and maybe there is a whole scene where he does break through the house and they trimmed it up.
Scenes like that.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. About what Mark was saying. They're reporting a 240 million worldwide box office, 137 million budget. So, if they wanted to, they could have spun this as a financial success.
Yeah. They could have,
Mhm.
but I think the American market's huge for them too. But with a lot of movies, the international market plays a
Mhm.
bigger part than like we acknowledge normally. Like
Mhm.
the international numbers are huge.
Yeah,
As
it
I
did
said,
well overseas.
yeah, yeah. I mean, thank goodness for that. But I think this movie they just knew they had to go back to the campy stuff. They had to make it fun and light, and that's
Yeah,
what happened
because
after this.
Spider-Man came out soon after and
Mhm.
Yeah.
did well.
In 2000, well, I think did Spider-Man come out in 2001 or 2? Because I
No,
remember they had the
Spider-Man was 2002 because they had
okay.
a teaser
Yeah.
involving the two towers, and then after 9/11, that teaser got pulled from theaters
Mhm.
altogether because of the because of the tragedy. They did a completely different PR campaign because I remember the original teaser before Spider-Man before 9/11 was literally a helicopter with bad guys and Spider-Man makes a
Yeah.
web between the two towers
Mhm.
to catch them in. And it was
Yeah.
a really cool trailer. And then afterwards they're like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't feature that in our, but yet who is it that did Gangs of New York?
Oh,
uh
Martin Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese said, yeah, screw you guys, I'm still going to show the two towers at the very end of the movie. So
Not only did he show them, he like shows them and then through another cross transition, he just has them fade away,
Mhm.
But yeah, I remember that was the very last shot of the film where
Yeah,
you saw how
James Shamus, however you pronounce his name, the screenwriter for this Hulk said that he saw Spider-Man while this
Mhm.
movie was being made, and he had second thoughts whether this dark, dramatic way to go is the way. He thought
right.
Spider-Man would be very popular, so that influenced the future Marvel movies.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was actually just reading that too today. Like I think he got out of Spider-Man and he was like, "Oh man, I don't know if people are gonna like our movie." It's like it's
I
nothing like this.
you know
Hulk doesn't do
that's
anything heroic.
and that's probably also why this film didn't do so well at the domestic box office, is because you are coming off of Spider-Man and you are coming off of, you're only 2 years not even 2 years separated from 9/11, and so now you have this darker, more serious story when people just got out of Spider-Man, which is a happy hero story. I
Mhm,
mean, it's not too happy, but you know what I mean. It's
mhm,
got a happy ending. It's peppy. Danny Elfman did the music for that as well. I
mhm.
love Elfman. I love him so much.
Yeah.
um and that's a great score too. But I think if this movie comes out before 9/11 and before Spider-Man, or later in down the road, I think it does better. I think
Yeah,
this type of story, it was too different from Spider-Man. It was darker and more serious. It didn't paint the military in the best of light,
Mhm. Yeah.
which, at the time people were very big on the military, so I think it had a number of real world elements going against it for when it came out. Yeah, 2 years after, or say even 5 years after, or 2 years before, I think it does a lot better.
Yeah.
and I
I
think this one will get rediscovered. I think when they do re-releases, sometimes they do special screenings. I think it'll be
Mhm.
better received, especially since the quality of Marvel movies have gone down. They've become less
Mhm,
substantial. This one
Mhm.
is a real drama, right? Still
mhm.
a superhero movie, still an art house movie, still a real drama. So I think people will respond to it better now, as Mark is saying, um, after this whole arc of the rise and fall of Marvel.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, Mark. Like when during like 2001 through 2004, maybe America didn't really want to see downer movies. They wanted something that could lift their spirits. It's kind of like
Mhm,
when Star Wars first came out. That was around like the time of the end of the Vietnam War, and everyone's
Mhm.
just recovering, and then they got this fun space adventure which ironically was sort of inspired from what was going on in Vietnam, but it's a fairy tale that was set in space that people just latched onto because it made them feel good after they saw the film.
Mhm.
After you see Hulk, you feel like you've been bashed around a bit, from abusive parents with repressed memories to the military sort of being like an allegory for not getting involved in something when they should get involved. And by that, I mean the scene where Bruce is fighting his father, David. It's like the military could have stopped them from fighting each other, but they're like, let's not get involved. Just let them kill each other. It's kind of like America when it comes to the bombing of Yemen. Like, oh, well, we're not part of, we don't gonna get involved in that. And that's sort of what they were going for. And yeah, I really liked how complex General Ross's character was in that movie, because he wasn't just like this hard ass general. He's this guy who wants to protect his daughter, even if it means he's kind of ruining her life by constantly putting her under surveillance for her protection. So it's like it's sort of like he doesn't know if he does know, but he is sort of conflicted between his service and his family, or I guess his only family is his daughter. I don't know what happened to his wife. They never addressed that. Maybe Hulk stepped on her. I don't know, but yeah, he was an interesting character, showing the complexity of war, and also sort of how we love to group together around our weaponry, and how useless it is, because when they use it on Hulk, it just bounces around, and at the end we have all these weapons, but it's either just going to kill us or someone else. And yeah, it's kind of a pacifist film when you think about it.
Well, this is a drama, right? Dramas are not super popular compared to light sci-fi action comedies, which Star Wars was a action drama with some space wizard stuff in it,
Yeah.
and so really escapism, fantasy. And then Marvel movies now are, after Iron Man, the later ones are action comedies, basically. So if you like drama, you like this one. If you like drama, sci-fi, you'll like this one. This is almost like regular sci-fi, right? They go a little into the tech side of what made the Hulk and the emotional side, but really it's an old-fashioned drama. And Ang Lee said his dad never encouraged him to make movies, except after Hulk came out, he thought about quitting movie making because he didn't like the response. He was very depressed about it. But his dad told him to go make another movie because he was too depressed. And then he decided to make Brokeback Mountain, and then his dad died soon after. And Ang Lee said his dad was healthy, but that was the only time in his life he said to go make a movie, because he saw Ang Lee upset over the reaction to Hulk.
Yeah. It's a lot like Kubrick films. Like, they come out, people are like, huh? And then a few years later, people go, oh, that was pretty good. Not that it's nearly the level of Kubrick, which, by the way, little confession, when I saw Napoleon, the Ridley Scott version, I fell asleep during it, and then I had to write the review the next day. And somehow I managed to.
Yeah, I mean, the director's cut of that movie is a little bit better. I watched that. I mean, it's really just an American reimagining. Ang Lee is an interesting Taiwanese American indie art house filmmaker. He's always done, very interesting projects. He did Life of Pi. He did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. He did The Ice Storm, Brokeback Mountain. He's always tackling these unusual, semi-mainstream projects, and sometimes he succeeds really well.
Yeah, he's a versatile,
and reviews wise also.
Well, he's very versatile. He makes sort of this kung fu high wire action film / drama, which it's on HBO. I need to see it. I never saw it. I need to see it. I know. But that was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and then he makes, a gay cowboy love story, which that's probably not the best way to define it. It's really about a movie about bigotry and love, and especially what happens to Heath Ledger's character is tragic. But he makes something like that, and then Life of Pi, where I remember watching the trailers and I'm like, oh, this looks like some silly adventure film. And then you get to the ending of that movie, and it completely flips itself over your head, and you go, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
Now I gotta look for all the
or,
clues.
yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
seen that one or Brokeback Mountain, but I've read the reviews and the responses to the movies. They were really well received.
yeah.
I loved Life of Pi. Life of
Mhm.
Pi was that hit check marked all the boxes for me because it was both visually interesting and the ending was actually just painted the whole film in a completely different light. And yeah, no, I like his movies are hit and miss. I still do not care for Ice Storm. I know many people who sing its praises, and for me, again, that's a straight drama, and
Mhm.
maybe that's it. But it was a straight drama that I just couldn't get into. I just did not care for any of the characters. I'm like, when is the ice storm gonna freeze everybody?
I
Yeah,
like the 1970s production design.
huh?
I like the 1970s production design.
Yeah, no, I mean, the setting was great. It was just the story that
In the 80s.
completely, the story, the story and the characters. I just, and I'm living in a world where after revisiting Ang Lee's Hulk, though, I want Sam Elliott to be the Thunderbolt Ross in the MCU.
Yes.
No offense to William Hurt, but I want his because his Ross, I'm a Sam Elliott stan. I love Sam Elliott in nearly everything he does. I think we're talking about underappreciated things. I think he's an underappreciated actor in many respects, especially if you see the man who killed Hitler and shot Bigfoot, or the man who shot Hitler and killed Bigfoot.
Yeah.
If you watch that movie, he gets to shine in that movie. And in this, I'm like watching his Thunderbolt Ross here. I wanted that Ross in the MCU because I'm like, there was more emotion from him. He was more, he felt like this is what you want from this character. He was more than just, I hate superheroes of sorts, whereas no offense to William Hurt, he played it fine, but the way they wrote his Ross was different than the way they wrote Sam Elliott's. And you notice I'm not even mentioning Harrison Ford's version. But I want that Sam Elliott Ross in the MCU because
I agree with that completely because he really kind of captured what it's like to be a conflicted military leader. Like he had some real animosity towards David Banner. And then when he projects that onto Bruce Banner, you feel that rage he's having. Like he's very calm one moment and then explosive the next, which I think is similar to him in the comics. But yeah, he played him in a conflicted way that has way more layers than William Hurt, who's like just trying to be tough. But I don't buy William Hurt as like a tough guy. He's just like, he seems like too much of an egghead, so it just doesn't work for me when I see him doing that role.
I have a question. You think Sam Elliott's character moved his daughter into the position to keep track of Bruce Banner because it's a big country, right? How do all these people reconnect? It's because Bruce is on the radar, Sam Elliott's radar, because of his daughter's involvement. I could see that character doing something like that.
Oh yeah, no, he absolutely was. I mean, she addresses it after you get the 1 year later after they vanquish the absorption man. After you get the 1 year later, and she mentions how she's still under surveillance and everything. So while he is a guy who is trying to be nice and loves his daughter and everything, he's still got her under surveillance because he's waiting for Hulk to show up because he knows he's David. He knows Bruce still loves her, and he's keeping an eye on her to protect her, but also like so we can finally nab her. So he's still using her for bait. And I like the way Ang Lee handles the Ross character in this film far better than what we get later on because he's less of a caricature and more of a person in this one. Whereas William Hurt's character, no offense, just felt like a very one note. Well, this is him, and I would have loved to see something that takes Sam Elliott's Ross and see what could maybe lead him to be like William Hurt. They could have explored that in the MCU as well. A great little subplot in there. but we don't get that. That's unfortunate, because that's one of the positives in revisiting this. I really like. I'm like, I'm digging the Ross character in this far better than I dig the later iterations of it.
Yeah, he's a character that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One thing that's missing in the Ang Lee Hulk is we need to see more of the relationship prior to the breakup between Bruce Banner and Jennifer Connelly's character, Betty Ross, right?
Betty. Yeah, Betty Ross.
Yeah. Such a classic, almost mythical American name, Betty Ross, like Betsy Ross.
My last dog's name was Betty.
There you go. So if after he's transformed, he can still connect with and calm down with the help of Betty Ross, we need to see that apparently she has had a big effect on his life. So we need to see more of that relationship, and maybe that would give Jennifer Connelly's character more to do in this movie if it were to be remade.
She does get shortchanged, unfortunately, with the way she's written in here to be only the MacGuffin for the most part. Yeah. She's the one that's either in distress, so he comes save her from the dogs, or she's the one being used by pretty much everybody just to get to Bruce. And she
looks so young in this movie. I'm like, when I rewatched it, is she 12? What's going on?
Yeah, she definitely looked young, but yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, they make her a doctor, but they don't even give her a lot of moments to be doctory, to where you get to see her maybe at the same level as Bruce was. It's hinted at, the way these two have a relationship, but we still only see Bruce mostly in action in every way, shape, or form, and she really is sidelined in this. Like, they weren't quite sure what to do with her outside of, okay, she's the love interest, Bruce still has a torch for her, and that's the whole motivation of Hulk coming back to her instead of just running off into the sunset and say, see you guys later. But that seems like the only real thing to her character, even when Nolte, the dad, is talking to her later and doing the exposition dump, she doesn't seem to be reacting to that. She's just like, oh, and I'm like,
the mother's out of the picture. What happened to the mother? I'd like to was her husband just so engulfed with his military work that it damaged their marriage in some way? Like, there's sort of a backstory there, which I get the movie's trying to really examine Bruce Banner's backstory, but considering its length, they could have gone into there.
They show she was on the base. Yeah.
She is his half sister.
It's you almost think that's the thing too, is they drop a tidbit that she was on the same base as him, and it doesn't go anywhere after that. I'm like, that would have been interesting to see, see them talk about it more, or deal with it more, but that almost seemed like just a little fleeting idea that probably got tossed to the wayside while they were in in production. They just decided to cut some of that out,
in further developing the Elliot Ross's character. No, Sam Elliott's character. Who's Elliot Ross? Sam Elliott's character. Well, I mean, we could have him have an affair with Bruce's mom. Then then Bruce's dad finds out, goes crazy, and then because maybe she had the Jennifer Connelly character, so half sister. So the general character kept track of, kind of his own son, Bruce Banner, all these years. So all this weirdness happens, but then he would have stopped the relationship, and that would have been a good motivation. Some hidden thing. This is kind of like Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah, it would be kind of like Empire in a way. You could play it like that, and then I think that would make it a little bit more intriguing. At least give her character a little bit more meat to her role, because even though you've got a bunch of names in here, Jennifer Connelly, especially her character, even though her title's on there, she really is not much of a. Even though she gets a lot of screen time, she's not much of a player as far as her character. She's there as a device for. She's not her own. She's literally the device for Bruce and David. Banner both. That it's
she did a good job in her role. Also, I thought, yeah, I thought Eric Bana did a great job. I think probably the best human Hulk I've seen.
Agreed. Like when he's having those convulsions where he's about to turn into the Hulk before they add the visual effects, it's like you really believe he's going through that. Yeah, like he looks like he's in pain. And if Ang Lee did that many takes, it's probably because he was in pain.
It's probably at that point,
Was Eric Bana in a lot of stuff before Hulk was like his, or was Hulk like his big sort of lead American role?
He was in Black Hawk Down. I think that was before.
Yeah.
And he was in Troy. I think that was before.
Troy was just after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Troy was just after.
When was Black Hawk Down?
That's what I'm looking up now. Black Hawk Down was before. That was the one he was known for. Was that one kind of got him noticed? Was Black Hawk Down, which is an intense but a good movie.
He played a great special forces soldier in that.
Yeah. Actually, Warzone. I saw that recently. I can't remember the character's name, but the guy who did Ex Machina and all that. Like that one, I feel like that's kind of like a spiritual follow up to Black Hawk Down.
Is it? Okay.
Where you just have like except it's more realistic because Black Hawk Down, it's bloody and warlike, but it seems a little too movie-ish. I think just because like the way Ridley Scott shoots the film, it's just loaded with like this bath of contrast, which kind of looks like a Michael Bay movie if it were less stupid. And that movie, I feel like Warzone was like a more grounded, realistic version of that film.
Black Hawk Down was based on a
real event.
Oh yeah, it was a real event. Yeah,
by soldiers who were there. So it's just a way of making it. I think the filmmaking style.
Yeah, Black Hawk Down was probably his first major foray into it. There was a film before that he did also called Chopper that came out that I think people kind of forgot. Plus he was in a few long running shows. So Black Hawk Down was his first thing. Then he did a couple of small things. He did a voice acting, which nobody pays attention to who actually is doing the voices usually. He was in Finding Nemo. The same year Hulk came out. And then that put him on the, it got him more notice for a while. And then he was in Troy and Munich. And then it kind of, and then, the other Bolin girl he was in. And then he got into he was in Star Trek as Nero.
Oh, yeah.
And then from there, he never quite was in a bigger, a really big film until there was King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. That film.
All those movies that you mentioned were big movies for their time.
They were for the time. After Black Hawk Down, he was in he was in a number of them, but they were not like top tier films, but they were ones that were popular and talked about and got him other work. I forgot he was in Hannah too for a while. He was in Hannah, but then. Yeah, off and on, up and down, like a lot of people, he's not necessarily, I don't think he ever hit his A-lister acting level again as he did after that stretch of Black Hawk Down, like I mentioned, to, all the way through to Munich. So he had a span of like 4 or 5 years to where he was kind of the guy.
Yeah.
For a while.
It's amazing. Like when I look back at this movie, it's 22 years old. So it's like everyone who we considered to be movie stars back then, like people who are like 18, maybe even 23 are like, who? And now I have all these new actors where I'm going, who's this guy? And it's like, he's a star now. But, back then, like Jennifer Connelly, she was, I don't know when A Beautiful Mind was, but I know she won the Oscar for that.
Well, Connelly was famous for a number of things.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in America, I think was like the first role I saw her in.
Yeah, no, Connelly.
That drama from that took place in New York about drug use. She became big from that.
Oh, you're talking about Requiem for a Dream?
Yeah.
I can't watch. That one just scares me.
It's a movie. That's one of those movies people watch once and they're good. They're good.
Yeah. It had some good parts.
I say it's not a horror movie, but Requiem for a Dream scares me so much more than a conventional horror movie. You know, it's kind of like I hope I'm getting the title right. It was called Come and See. It was about this little boy, who was like he was a little Russian kid during World War II, and he transitions into looking like an old lady. Like his hair's gray and his head shaking like he's Bowman from Space Odyssey. You know, it's that's another movie where it's an example where something doesn't have to be categorized as a horror movie to count as a horror movie, because real life is so much more scary than when they put in the horror film sometimes. And I think there was an element of horror in Hulk that audiences really weren't into, you know, whether it be the horrible repressed memories he had or just the pain that Bruce is going through. You know, it's an introspective drama that people don't want that. People just want Hulk smash. And I think now that they've had years of the same old Marvel shit, they're starting to come back and say, oh, this movie's actually different. It's trying to do something. Is it always successful? No. But you know what? I don't care if it's entirely successful, because at the end of the day, it was a movie that did a good job of depicting anger and how we all kind of put on masks, you know, to pretend like everything's okay in public, when in private we could be going through a lot of pain, and we just kind of dig it deep like Bruce Banner did, and then hoping it'll never come out and we become this other thing. You know, I mean, influences from this film for Ang Lee was Beauty and the Beast, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, things of that nature. And it's great to see a movie that has something in common with those older films. It has like a real sort of voice and message to it. Even if it doesn't work, it's still engaging to see for me. And I know people think it's like really talky and boring, but I kind of like that it was talking and boring. I kind of like that we don't see the Hulk until like almost an hour in. Maybe it's like 40 minutes, because you're actually getting invested in Bruce Banner's character and, you know, his sort of livelihood. And then when the Hulk comes in, it turns into like another film, but it never turns into like a straight dumb action film. And that's what I really appreciate it for.
Yeah, this played better for me when I saw it today than when I saw it in the movie theater 22 years ago. So it's tough to make a comic book genre sci-fi movie that lasts and is good 22 years later. If you think about movies from that were made in the 50s, if people were watching in the 80s, hardly any of that sci-fi stuff works that many years later.
What's funny is we were talking about Jennifer Connelly and casting. Her status, yet the character she has does not match the status she had in Hollywood at this point, because she had a far longer and more solid pedigree than Eric Bana did, and a number of other people in this film. But she ends up getting this character that's almost sidelined in a way that's really, if you look at her character, she could have been played by just about anyone. It didn't have to be Jennifer Connelly, because I don't think they utilize her because of the sheer volume of, characters that you have in here and that. I don't think they utilized her as well as they could have, given all the films that she came out before, and because she did more than just teen, like you guys mentioned. She did, Requiem of a Dream. She was in Pollock, A Beautiful Mind. She was in Dark City, Inventing the Abbots, Mulholland Falls, Higher Learning. I mean, The Rocketeer, even. She was in another super where she was, and so it's interesting to see how her role in this one, where watching it again, I'm like, they could have pretty much cast any younger actress for that role, for what her character, the way she was written in the end.
I think she just wanted to work with Ang Lee. I mean, that's why Sam Elliott took the role. He didn't even read the script. He was just excited to work with the director. But like I totally agree with you. Her character, she's just there sort of for like other characters to bounce their problems on. And she's stuck in the middle of it. And she doesn't change. She doesn't really serve much of a purpose other than, calming down the Hulk. And she doesn't do anything that really stands out in the movie. She's just very passive. All she does is tell her dad, "Oh, you're gonna make Hulk stronger," and that's about it.
I mean, the only part where you get to see Conley actually kind of act it and bring forth a bit of that chops is at the very end after the 1 year later, where she's having the exchange with her dad. I really enjoy that scene because I'm like, okay, here she's got some, some strength to her. She's got some personality to her a little bit more here. When she's talking with her dad, talking about, yeah, no, I know you've been following me for a year. That whole little section, she at least gets that.
Yeah.
But you could tell, I mean, she may have played, joined as well just to work with Ang Lee. I just would have liked to see her character be handled a bit differently because especially with her.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, it's the fault of the script. This is basically a boys slash men's problem sci-fi movie, right? So if they had a female scriptwriter on the team, they probably could have done something better.
Yeah. And I think it is just funny how Ang Lee went from Hulk to Brokeback Mountain, like a complete 180. It just shows how versatile he is and how he can handle different genres. And
he's done that throughout his career.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the mark of a very talented director, kind of like how Spielberg, he can make Jurassic Park and Schindler's List within the same year, which first off, how the hell did he not die of exhaustion? But then second off, he made two classics like that, and they're completely different films. You have one movie about dinosaurs, the other about the Holocaust. Or you can look at Paul Thomas Anderson's career. Like his first movie doesn't really have much of a style to it. But fast forwarding to like Boogie Nights and Magnolia, he kind of has like a semi-Scorsese style where the camera's always moving around and capturing everything and is very energetic. And then he goes to make There Will Be Blood, or even before There Will Be Blood, Punch Drunk Love, which kind of has like a Kubrick style where the camera is like mostly on a wide depth of field and it's just capturing moments. And of course, he always has that bubbling sense of insanity in his films. But like those are directors that don't just make the same film again and again and again. Tim Burton, sorry, but yeah.
I will always love my Burton. I will always love my Burton.
He holds a place in my heart. I'll always love him for Batman.
I will always love Burton. I love his films on various degrees, but I've always enjoyed him because he speaks to my inner self. His style and everything, even the ones that aren't that great, I still really enjoy his visual style. It clicks with me. I totally get how people don't care for a lot of his stuff and how some of it does play off the same. But then you do get occasional films that are different, like Big Fish.
And I think that was his last really good one.
And it's one of those things where when he had Big Eyes too, which was different in many ways than other films, but because he's one of those directors that will do the big commercial stuff and his heart might not exactly be in it, but he even admits that he'll do that to get the paycheck so he can make the smaller film he wants to make.
Yeah.
And so, but no, he is more similar in style. And I get what you're saying, but even on a lower level, there's a director I don't know if you guys are familiar with at all, but Fred Olen Ray, who's been making various levels of budgeted films for decades. He made one of my all-time favorite B exploitation films, Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. Okay. If you look at his resume, if you look at his body of work, he does a film like Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers or She Devil from Mars or something like that. But then he does a family movie. He does a TV show, which he's an Emmy award-winning guy. He doesn't stick to just the B movie exploitation campy stuff. He's done a wide range of stuff. And, like you said, it shows how talented you are because he's been successful in nearly any of the genre stuff that he's made in one way, shape, or form. He's been successful. Maybe not huge, wide release stuff, but consistent and diverse. And I think that's what really shows a talent for a true talent. And like you said, Spielberg is one of those. Tarantino does a lot of the same stuff. He does it well, but his stuff has similar beats. That's his style. And I don't fault him for that at all. But I think those who are really diverse that can pull off both genres are why their films really last a long time.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
Ang Lee
Peter
is a talented
Jackson. He
filmmaker.
did like I'm sorry, go
Mhm.
ahead.
Yeah, Ang Lee is a talented filmmaker, and yeah, both types are good. Like Jarmusch makes the same kind of movie. Wes Anderson makes the same kind of movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tarantino makes the same kind of movie. I
Mhm.
mean, same style. Different subjects, which is fine. I mean, you find out what you're good at and you stick with it.
Yeah.
Or you could do what Ang Lee does, which is take your skills and sensibility and apply to different projects, which is what Spielberg does. Spielberg is a little bit boring to me because I think I kind of grew up watching his movies. I mean, they were, I didn't really discover art house movies till like 1992 or so, right? Till I was 18, 19, whatever. So Spielberg stuff is super familiar. But his Munich with Bana, that's kind of like an Ang Lee movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Munich is Spielberg taking a chance,
Mhm.
where he's talking about very serious subjects, though mostly it was reflective of the war on terror. And they tied that to the Munich massacre at the Olympics, I think,
Yeah, very
Mhm.
complex
in the
subject.
70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's handled very, like, one of the scenes that I thought really took guts, and I don't know if it paid off or not. I thought it was weird when, like, Eric Bana's having sex with his wife, and then he's having like flashbacks of like the athletes getting killed. It's like you get in that character's head, and it doesn't feel exploitive. And that's something that only Spielberg could really do because he has
Yeah.
very delicate sensibilities.
Well, that movie, I like that Spielberg movie better than almost anything else he's done because it's much more complex. It's
Yeah.
it's criticizing basically, are extrajudicial killings acceptable at under any condition, whether it's
Right.
whether if a government does it for good purposes, the main character gets further and further away from the official national line for these killings, and he starts to see, oh, a bunch of innocent people are getting killed, people who may have not had anything to do with the Munich massacre. So very complex movie that questions the power of the state to kill people.
Yeah, especially there's that one scene where they almost blew up a little girl who picked up the
Right.
phone, and it just
Yeah.
shows how things can go very wrong because,
Mhm.
like, you're trying to take out a target, but then other people die in that process. And how does it make you any better than the terrorists then?
Mhm.
And it
Right.
kind of really brings in that moral ambiguity. Actually,
Which,
Andor
which,
kind of has some
which
moral
half of
ambiguity.
Israel still has a problem with, in the current wars.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like something that'll never end. But I mean, circling back to the Hulk, I like this movie because it took chances, and even if you don't like it, you kind of remember it because it was just so different,
Mhm.
and it's more of a character study, and I don't think we're ever going to get a Hulk movie like that again. We're just going to get, because the Hulk's played off for laughs by Marvel. Whether you're watching She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, or Mark Ruffalo, like, falls out of a ship and lands on a bridge and doesn't Hulk out yet, like they did
But
in Thor Ragnarok.
But Andor is very popular with critics and some
Mhm.
audiences, so we could have some serious Hulk type movies in the future. Let's see.
Yeah, if they ever decide to take a chance like they did again, we can get that. But I don't see Disney taking a chance like that with this character because they saw the result again. I think Andor, I think they greenlit that show because Tony Gilroy helped write Rogue One, and Rogue One was a huge hit.
Mhm.
Right.
So they thought, this guy wrote this hit. We're gonna give him creative control, and he can make Andor. And Andor is Star Wars that's not made for kids. If you play this for your kids, they probably wouldn't understand what the hell's going on in the plot.
I gotta watch the 7, 8, 9 yet, but I
Good.
watched 1
Good.
through 6.
Oh,
And
8 is when it goes crazy. It's
yeah, well, I figured they were building up to it, but it's one of those things where they have two sub characters that end up being just as intriguing. Deidre and Cyril
Zero.
Yeah.
end up being as intriguing as your main heroes, and I didn't know it was the couple that I wanted, but for some reason, when you get the episode where where his mom comes over, I loved how that whole thing played. I'm like, I did not expect when I first watched season 1 to be pulling for this couple, actually. And I'm like, I shouldn't be, but
yeah, they're working for the internal.
Empire.
They're working for the Empire. I'm trying to remember what ISB stood for.
Yeah.
But they work for the Empire, but you see it sort of through their lens, how the rebels aren't heroes. And in fairness, like in season 1, there's that whole heist scene when they're like stealing a bunch of credits, and they literally are like pointing guns to like Imperial's families and they're like, "We'll kill your kids. Give us this." And you're just like, this is a rebellion? They're gonna like kill someone's family? And then there's that great speech from Luthen, about sacrifice. And then you get to season 2, and you can see why Cyril wants to hunt Andor so bad, because every time he's around Andor, like everything goes nuts around him. There's like the first episode where he's around Andor, and there's like this huge physical skirmish. And then, like in season 2, his mother is projected up on, by the droid, and everyone starts rebelling against the Empire troops. So, like to him, yeah. And then in episode 8, you'll see. I won't say anything. I won't say anything.
No, that's okay. But no, I mean, but yeah, it's. I think you're slowly. It's coming back around again to where audiences may be a little more open. I don't think we're there yet, because in all honesty, I personally really enjoy, not just because it's Raimi, though people say, well, it's just Raimi. I personally like Multiverse of Madness because Raimi at least was trying, for the Doctor Strange character, you got to do weird, strange things. And his first film, I really love. I know a number of people who don't quite care for Doctor Strange. I personally love Doctor Strange because it was not afraid to go out there with the magic stuff. And Multiverse of Madness was kind of the same way. Didn't do it quite as much as I wanted, but it still went to a lot of interesting and maybe sometimes campy places of sorts, but it was doing something different. It was trying, and people weren't receptive really to it as much as they were hoping to. I mean, I'm not saying that it was at the Multiverse of Madness is the same like art house, like Ang Lee's Hulk. It's not, but it's still kind of that similar vein to where they're doing something outside of the formula that people were used to. And it really was a mixed bag of reception with the second Doctor Strange film because of that. Because one of the best comments I heard people mentioning when the credits were rolling and they finally left after the end credits, they were like, well, that was a lot more campier than I thought it would be. And I'm like, I loved it because it was campy.
That's Sam Raimi. He is. Have they not seen The Evil Dead?
Yeah, Ang Lee's Hulk is like the Andor for Marvel movies.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's things that are complicated that adults will appreciate.
Right.
But it's funny. God, how old was I in 2003? Maybe 16, 17. I don't know.
Oh my Lord.
And
9. Yeah, I wish. But
Mike, how long is the show? It's been over an hour now.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. All right. So, anyways, yeah, I could talk for hours more about the stuff I liked with the film. Whether it's critiquing the military-industrial complex, or if it's talking about the two faces, the two sides that we have to deal with in life, and how we have to constantly push down our emotions so people don't see us at our natural state when it's at the worst state. But anyways, having said that, I'd like to thank Mark the Movie Man Crosscheck. You could catch him at Special Mark Productions, and Sujiwa Ekanayake, New York City indie filmmaker. If you go on his YouTube channel, which I just clicked out of.
You had it.
Yeah.
Also, the movie says, don't experiment with gamma rays. And, if you have to Hulk out, you have to Hulk out.
Yeah. That was one dumb part of the plot where that guy's in danger, and then he moves away from the machine, and then Eric Bana just puts both of his hands on like the gigantic thing that produces radiation. Like, what are you doing, dude? But outside of that,
actually, one thing that the movie should have stressed more is why Bruce Banner's dad is so crazy. he is very against the military. So you could have shown a little bit of the backstory. Maybe he's an aging revolutionary who really didn't like the stuff that happened with Vietnam War or whatever led up to, how he became so anti-military.
Yeah, and yet he works on a military base, but he did
Well,
blow
I
it
mean,
up. Yeah.
funding comes from certain avenues. I mean, I was
Yeah.
talking to a doctor a couple of days ago, and a project that I can't talk much about, but initially she said the funding came from the DoD, and we're talking about a new face on her project. I'm like, is this still a DoD project? He's like, no, not anymore. But a lot of things get started with government, with the Department of Defense money.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, thanks so much for catching on, and I'm gonna play the outro, and then we're gonna be done streaming, hopefully.
Great discussion.
Great job, guys. I'll see you right after the outro, which is like a few seconds.
Okay.
Bye bye. Okay.
1 hour and 20 minutes. Very nice.
Yep. End stream. Play outro and end stream. Oh, screw it. Let's see what happens.
You're still on the stream.